Hello, I'm sorry I'm not with you in person, but delighted to accept this award from the IBTN, an organisation that's really dear to my heart and has made and is making such a difference to how we think and study behaviour change. And I really hope this talk will be of interest to all of you. It's about the Behaviour Change Intervention Ontology and where we are and next steps in developing it. This is part of the Human Behaviour Change Project. This is a Wellcome-funded 5-year programme of research, and in green here I have highlighted all the behavioural scientists who've been working on the project, but it's a collaboration with computer scientists and system architects. So the problems that an ontology and behaviour change interventions addresses is we have an enormous accelerating amount of knowledge about behaviour change, but it is not informing scientific advance as rapidly as it should. Why not? Evidence is being inefficiently synthesised, both in terms of outcomes and processes. The evidence is fragmented into domains, there's a lack of shared languages, and this means there's slow accumulation, but also there's a lack of automation brought to bear with it. Human beings just aren't quick enough for what's needed. And thirdly, there's poor theorisation. We need more understanding of the explanation of variation across contexts, so for example settings, populations and behavioural outcomes, and also the mechanisms of action that bring about change. So this is what we're trying to address, and the project's vision is to develop an understanding of human behaviour to answer variants of what we're calling the big question. When it comes to behaviour change interventions, what works, compared with what, for what behaviours, how well, for how long, with whom, in what setting and why? Now, we don't ask all those questions in one research study, but when it comes down to it, research questions are one or more of those parts of that very big question. And as we all know from those of us who've done evidence synthesis and systematic literature reviewing, it's really hard to get enough data to be able to look at anything more than the average outcome, and usually the answer is small to modest effects and large heterogeneity. Well, we want to find out what's driving that heterogeneity, because that is what is useful when it comes to saying to what extent can we use this evidence for this particular problem or to inform this particular policy. So part of the solution is better reporting of all aspects of interventions, their mechanisms of action and their contexts, because without this we're limited in our ability to replicate findings, to implement, evaluate and improve interventions. The other part is to improve methods to organise and synthesise large amounts of complex evidence at scale and rapidly. And secondly, to be able to make inferences from that evidence to generate new understanding, i.e. to go from what we do know to what we don't. So this is a very broad conceptualisation of the project. On the left, we have got the problem. Huge amounts of messy evidence growing faster than humans can keep up with. On the right-hand side here, we have the messy evidence getting turned into well-organised, useful scientific insights. So up-to-date estimates of the effectiveness of behaviour change interventions, unpacking reasons for heterogeneity in intervention effectiveness, and generating new testable hypotheses about behaviour change. How do we do this? Well, in the blue triangle is represented the Behaviour Change Intervention Ontology to provide an organising structure to guide the automation, which is artificial intelligence, including natural language processing and machine learning. So ontologies, here they are at their simplest, entities and the relationships between them. They're a formal system for representing the world that provides clarity, consistency and communication, and can be used by humans and computers to make inferences. They consist of uniquely, precisely defined entities and properties consisting of relations with other entities. And they're used extensively in science, engineering and commerce to structure knowledge systems that form a basis for powerful searching and inference. And you've probably heard of the human gene ontology, for example. What information needs to be captured? So we can think of the intervention scenario, which includes people and organisations, the interventions themselves, the settings, various aspects of them. And the people and organisation obviously includes behaviour. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see we've also got intervention evaluation, the rationale, the methods, the findings. So that's very broadly what we need to capture in such an ontology. Here we have a representation of the upper level of just the intervention scenario part of the ontology. So on the left-hand side, you see intervention, which very broadly, the content and various aspects of delivery. On the right-hand side at the bottom, the outcome behaviour and the mechanisms of action, the processes of change through which the intervention changes the outcome behaviour. But in order to understand that, we need to know the exposure, the reach and the engagement of the population with the intervention, and also the context, the population and the setting. All of these will moderate the relationships between the intervention and the processes, their mechanisms of action, and between those and the outcome. So in order to understand what's going on in terms of the value of the outcome behaviour, which is the end point of any trial, we need to understand all of these as different entities together that are represented in the blue part of the triangle. So the ontologies making up the BCIO that have been published are the upper level, behaviour change techniques that's being developed into an ontology currently, mode of delivery, intervention source and intervention setting. And then under development are intervention schedule, doses and style of delivery, mechanisms of action, target behaviour, target population, and the exposure, which is reach and engagement. So these reflect the kind of key entities within behaviour change interventions. And you'll see on the left-hand side things like dose and tailoring. Those are all within the ontology. So here we see basically what I showed you in the triangle, but with a little bit more elaboration. And you'll see that there are arrows that have labels showing the nature of that relationship. Under every single one of these circles are many leveled ontologies themselves. And you'll see there's in filled in circles at the top, the report and the plan. This is to show that all of this is a way of representing how you report an intervention, but all of this is also how you represent the plan or your intervention protocol. And the difference between the two is what's often referred to as fidelity. But then here we've also got the BCI comparison, because it's the comparison with two or more BCI scenarios that gives us our evidence of effectiveness and also the processes by which that effectiveness occurred. And again, you'll see we have reported evaluations, but also planned evaluations. So bringing all those things together is a structure for representing the knowledge that is in our trials and our other research studies. Now, at the moment, we're just doing randomised controlled trials, but there's absolutely no reason why this can't be extended to many other kinds of study design. So just to give you an example of one of the component ontologies, the mechanisms of action, if you look at the left, you'll see there's quite a lot of complexity there, and I've just taken out a small part and expanded it below so that you can see the kind of thing we're talking about. Now, I think you can kind of see why this is all taking years and years to produce, because there's a huge amount of work that goes into it. I haven't got time to talk about the development methods, but that is in the published collection of papers. So what can we use ontologies, or specifically the behaviour change intervention ontology, for? Identifying research gaps, because it's so systematic and it's extensive. Where are the gaps exactly? Evidence synthesis, building models, developing interventions, developing study protocols, evaluating study protocols, writing papers, and evaluating papers. So here's just a sort of representation of how ontologies might be used in terms of evidence synthesis. On the left, you have here just an abstract of a paper. There's a section of the ontology that's relevant, and then it all gets annotated into software that then can be read by computers as well as human beings. We're also using it importantly in the Human Behaviour Change project in terms of prediction. And prediction that can be interpreted is what we're aiming for. So a policymaker, a planner, a practitioner may come along and wants to know what the evidence is for the effectiveness of particular kinds of interventions. For example, they specify their age, the setting, the mode of delivery, and then find out what evidence is out there that speaks to the particular constraints that they've put into the system, and then the system comes up with an outcome. Now this is hard, but we've had one traction that's used a vector-based way of doing this, and now we're using ontologies much more integrally, much more sort of semantic enhancement of the models. So basically watch this space of this work. Okay, so the benefits of ontologies as I've seen them is it really sharpens thinking, especially representing complexity. It helps inquiry to be coherent and also comprehensive. Links evidence and theory across scientific fields, and this is one of the real purposes of ontologies. We're so fragmented and working in our silos, and to make much more rapid advance, we need to bring these fields of scientific inquiry together. It enables cumulative science, as ontologies represent new knowledge and understanding as they develop. And the fact they can be represented by computer programming means we can harness machine learning, natural language processing, and AI. And this is a real step change in evidence synthesis, interpretation, and generation of new knowledge. However, there are also challenges to using ontologies. So for many people, including me, over the last few years, there's an unfamiliarity of the language and way of thinking. You know, one has to get into this very precise way of thinking. That may reduce economy of exposition and subtlety of expression. So in no way do they replace, you know, the subtlety and elaboration of the English language, but they're a backbone, they're a skeleton that one can hang other things on. It does need ontological and domain-specific expertise, and Jana Hastings is the expert consultant we've been working with, and she's been absolutely amazing. One needs to define the scope of the ontology, and that can be quite challenging, and then we need to find and link with other ontologies, because the important thing, this is cumulative. You don't just start out with a new ontology. You look to see, are there already ontologies in the space that I want to think about? And if you can find relevant ontologies, you use the entities from them. You don't just make up new ones. So as much as possible, everything's linking with everything else. So all of our behaviour change intervention ontology has got many entities from many other ontologies. So that's a really important point. You identify and define entities and their relationships. You have to make formal definitions, which are often quite very clunky, but you can make informal definitions too. And then in terms of the methodology of developing this, reliability assessment, stakeholder feedback, and achieving a broad consensus, really key to making this helpful, making it work. Now also, it's really important to reassure people. This is very new, and for some researchers, it can be threatening. So I think one important thing is to stress that they foster collaboration to enable collective advance. They're not about imposing uniformity or undermining creativity. And it allows flexibilities of terms, but also having precise definitions. And that enables location in what's called namespace. So actually, people can use any terms they want, but what's important is to define them and link them up, show how they relate to other people's definitions. Just to end, everything we've done is open access. We're open and collaborative, and we've had some very good collaborations. And in the red circle here is everything's being not everything, nearly everything has been published on Welcome Open Research. So do go there for the collection of what we have so far. We've got a range of different digital tools that we're producing to make the generation and use of ontologies easier. So if you look on the left-hand side down there, various aspects of ontologies, including the visualization tool, it's really cool, how to search, paper authoring tools, another really exciting development, and then information extraction, outcome prediction, which is actually key to the whole human behaviour change project. These are different ways in which you can access the behaviour change intervention ontology. And one important thing is building sustainability. There's no point developing something if it's not going to continue being useful and used and developed and built on and extended after any particular researcher has gone. So I've been putting a lot of thought and energy into how this can be done. And ontologies do provide a really good way of doing it. So first of all, there has to be a commitment to developing open source, open data and fair resources, which stand for findable, accessible, interoperable and reusable. There should be community development through extensive stakeholder involvement, and we've done quite a bit of that, and we're planning on doing more over this year, our final year. We finished this in November. Getting partnership with funders, academic and professional societies and non-profit organisations. And I have in me one more effort to get a human behaviour change project Mark II, and this will be really important for the next programme of work, and the importance of training and services. And again, we're developing this in our final year of the project. So please do sign up for the newsletter, follow us on Twitter if you want more information about where things are going. As I said, all of this should be completed by this autumn. Thank you very much.